All right, cool. We're live. We always let people roll in for the first couple minutes, you know?
What if I want to walk in instead of roll in?
Well, here, just a second. Just a second. Okay, so Jen, she's on her daily commute. I think she got stuck in traffic or something, but I think she just arrived. Sorry. Work from home joke.
That was too good. Oh, woo. That's one way to start my morning.
Yeah. No. Hey, we got people rolling in. Let us know you're here. Send us a chat. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, your feedback and your comments are really important to us. We love to answer your questions if we can. So, welcome to the show. And I got some things to show off. Some real world stuff. So just to put this in context, if you a little bit, it's really what we're trying to do here is cross that simulation to real world gap, or we call it the sim to real gap. And so we are trying to do things in Omniverse, and then we want those things to work in the real world. So that's why, and just for if you haven't joined us in the last few sessions, let me pull this up. We're working on the JetRacer. And here we go. Oh, this is a cool GitHub repository that an NVIDIA made. And he came up with 2 designs for remote control cars with built-in cameras that you can use, set up as self-driving cars. And he's even got a tutorial on how to train the things. It's so cool. And we are building this in Omniverse. And instead of training it in the real world, we're going to train it in Omniverse and then see if we can get it to drive. So we're going to train the model in Omniverse and deploy that to the real world. And it's really a lot of fun. We're starting off with just some CAD models, and that's what we're doing. We're modeling this car in CAD. We're bringing it into Omniverse. We're going to train it, all that stuff. And what I want to show off, let me make me big. How do I make myself big? Actually, I'll stop sharing for just a second. There you go.
The solo layout.
This is the Tamiya. Is that how you say it? I think. The TT02. This is if you look on the right hand, this is one of the cars that for the JetRacer you can use. So I've got that. And then I've got right here a Jetson Orin Nano. And it's actually, I was worried about the form factor because spacing out his name, just a second. I want to say, remember, it's Yotoko, right? Let me make sure I'm getting his name right. He deserves tons of credit, you know. No, it's not. Here you go, Chitoku Yato. And Chitoku designed this whole thing, and he said in our live stream that the Nano or the Orin would have the same mounting points if you took off the plastic kind of protector around the edge. And I was a little worried about that because I'm used to like auto body stuff where if you pull plastic auto body panels off, your fasteners break and it gets kind of wild. But this one just has 4 little screws that hold that on. So we don't even need a new mounting plate for it, I don't think. So same form factor. So cool. Zia's here. Welcome. And so, I've got the TT02. I've got my Jetson Nano, and you don't have to get the Orin Nano. You can get the one of the earlier nanos for this project. The reason I got the Orin Nano is because I think we'll want to do bigger projects moving forward. And this has got the horsepower to support that, bigger projects. The regular Nano or the first version Nano, it might too. I'm just kind of like making sure I got the powerful one. And I got so where did I get my Nano? My Orin? Sorry, Nano and Orin mixed together. I got it from the employee store. Like there's a gear store at NVIDIA, and twice a year we get a couple bucks. Like we get some discounts on stuff. So I got a little discount on it. So that was really fun. Yeah, there you go. Let's see here. Oh, are we only on? That's interesting. The chat, whoever sent that chat for us, I think, was that you, Jen?
Yeah.
It only went out to Twitch.
Well, I only set it to go with the Twitch.
Oh,
I see. Put it on YouTube too. I can put it on YouTube.
Yeah. YouTube people want to see it too. Yeah, I bet, right? Yeah, right. Just go down to the cafeteria. 1 hamburger, 1 Orin, please. That'd be nice. And we've got Oscar Werner here. Hey, all right. So that's the project. If you're coming back to it, if you're new to us, that we're working on. Here's just our first CAD model. And if you're saying, hey, this looks a little cartoony, this doesn't look like the real car, you'd be right. And that's because we're just trying to get a basic version out there. What's that?
They can't see it.
Oh, you can't see it. I'm not sharing my screen. Heaven's sakes. Thank you. I always do that. There we go. This is where we're at so far. Boom. And if you're thinking, hey, that looks a little cartoony, you would be right. We're just creating, kind of setting up space so that we can simulate this and see how it moves, debug the simulation. I've got, the real car that we can start to model parts after, find out the suspension mounting points. I weighed parts as I was putting them on, so we should be able to put real weights in there. But as far as doing the simulation goes, it doesn't need to actually look right. It just really has to have the right geometry and mass properties. So that's our priority, is to get this stuff into Omniverse and get simulating. And how long did it take to get the CAD model to this level? A few hours. There's some kind of looping around, getting things just right, but I'd say 5 to 10 hour range. And let's see. And I just wanted to show you a little bit about that. But first, let me show you where we are in Omniverse. So here I've imported it into Omniverse. And if I run the simulation, a lot of the stuff isn't connected yet. So it's just falling into a pile. That's expected, right? I just haven't rigged that stuff yet. But this wheel I have rigged. You can see it's even on. Let me get out a little bit. Oh, shoot. What happened? My speed's too high on my camera. Oh, way too high. You can pick it up. There you can see you can compress it. And there it goes. Kind of cool, huh? Well, Raynon says it's just like falling apart. Not all of it. This wheel is not falling apart. You guys, they're bantering me. You guys are killing me, okay? We're going to rig up the other wheels. All right. I'm going to end the broadcast. Just kidding. So let's do some other, let's do some more wheels, okay? Or let me show you, let's take a step back, because one thing that really would have had you laughing is that when I first did this, I was attaching the suspension arms directly to the wheel. And as you can imagine, it didn't roll very well. I had to add this upright part. So you add the suspension to the uprights, and then you add the wheel, attach the wheel to the upright with a single revolute joint so that it can roll. And so I had my stuff all imported, and then I had to import another one. And so I just want to go over a little bit of this USD structure that I'm using to kind of demonstrate this pipeline for you. So let's go back to CAD. Where's my CAD? Here we go. All right, here's my CAD. If I go to the full vehicle, you may notice every single one of these, I have made an assembly for it. And I have made an assembly for each independently moving component. And the reason that I've done that is because I can export these assemblies individually, and then I can import them into Omniverse, each kind of independently moving component. And then as we update and do higher quality CAD for these components, you can just replace that one reference in the USD scene. And since all of the joints and physics and stuff are attached to the material, it'll work better. It'll just be replaced with all the physics intact. And we can maybe demonstrate that a little bit. But I've got a few questions rolling in. Yeah, so a few questions about importing the CAD. I can't download the JetRacer to Omniverse via Onshape connector. Yeah, and well, this is a public object, so we should be able to find it there too. All that said, if you import this with the Onshape connector, it will import the whole thing as a single reference. And if you do it that way, it will be hard to update individual components as we improve them. So I actually do not recommend using the Onshape connector here. And I'll show you what I do recommend. And Zia says he's hoping that I'll go through the export to Omni, and I absolutely will. And just a second. And let's see. Let's go ahead and do that. Let me show you. First, I'll show you how this is structured, and then I'll show you how the pipeline works. So we have a subassembly for each component that we might want to replace. All right. And then if you go to the Omniverse side, I've imported them individually like this. And if you look at each one of these, it's a payload. So it's just pointing at this arm front lower left.usd. Okay. And if you look, the rigid bodies are added to this higher level prim with the payload on it. That means if I redirect this asset path to something else, or if I replace that file in Nucleus, it'll just show the different geometry, and the joints and the physics will still be connected to that component. I will have to create a collider with any collider meshes. That's okay. But for the most part, I can replace that assembly and it'll just snap in place. It'll still be working. So let's do that real quick. Let's just do a simple iteration. These A-arms are all very pointy. So let's just make them less pointy. I'm just coming up with a demo here. Yeah, and Zia says, so everything is very modular. We can swap out tires easily. That's right. Everything's, and not only can you swap out tires, but let me show you with let's show you with an arm here. So if I go to my suspension, my suspension arms part studio. Here are all my arms. Let's just take one of the arms and let's improve it a little bit. Okay. So my front suspension doesn't actually really look like this. It looks more like, let's go ahead. Let's just go the front upper. Where's my front here? Oh, here's my front. You know, I just want to demonstrate the pipeline, so I'm going to do something pretty simple. I'm just going to add a fillet to this, okay? Just so it's less pointy. But I think it shows that you know, this is a different geometry. Okay, so now what? I go to my arm assemblies. I have an assembly for each arm. That should actually update on across both. I'll just hold the boat. Oh, this mirror is off of, just a second. There we go. Like, I think as Zia said, the order matters. If I do this fillet after that mirror, it doesn't go across. But if I do this fillet before I do the mirror, there you go. All right, so we've got the arm here. I've modified it. Arm, front, right, upper. Actually, we'll go to arm, front, left, upper. Let's do that one. And then I can right click, I can export. And now here's the deal. I have noticed that step files, I've been having some trouble with step file imports. I have reached out internally, and there's with USD Composer in Kit 105, they're doing a major update to some of this, and in the step and IGES imports getting a lot better. It does work. It's kind of an intermittent trouble kind of a thing. But for now, let's just use a GLTF, because a GLTF has been working for me every time. So let's see here. So let's export that. It's going to download it for me. There we go. Open my folder. Now let's open up a create. I've got all my CAD here. And let's add this in. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this here. Going to have my arm, front, left, upper .gltf now. I'm going to rename this. Do I have any changes? I haven't made any changes yet. I'm going to rename this to old, just to show the pipeline. And then let's convert this to USD. Bring it into here. Come on. Does that work? Here we go. Arm, front, left, upper, old. No, it didn't work for me. Confirm. There we go. Now we have an arm, front, left, upper.usd. That's should be our new geometry. I've just replaced the file there. So now if we go to our content, if we go up a level to JetRacer, if I reload this scene, it should have that geometry right there. It doesn't have a texture applied to it now. It doesn't have the material, but you can see It's not going to work yet, but it's going to work kind of funny. Let's take a look at, unless it has the exact same structure, which it might. That'd be kind of cool. What layer am I on? Oh dear. No, I didn't change anything. So I open up JetRacer, and if I go to that arm, front, left, upper, the joint is still applied to that mesh because I did all of my work with my layers. And I just re-exported that thing. Sure, hide the tire and see the fillet? You bet. There it is. And let's take a look at I think the reason that the material didn't come across is just because I had exported the other one as a step and this one as a GLTF, and so the structure is a little bit different. But you see, I have layers, my CAD import layer where I built the CAD out, the rigid bodies layer, the material layer, and I did all of those as layers so that basically as long as your prims have the same paths, it'll just redo all that work. And so you can use these layers almost like macros to automate your work and create these pipelines. And let's go back. Let's see. And I would say for now, export GLTF, but soon, once they release, soon they're going to release this updated USD Composer, and then I would use Step here. And let's see. And internally, I'm using that new version and using Step. And so I'm going to go ahead and actually change that back real quick, just because that structure is a little different and it's got my materials on it. So let's see here. Let's delete this folder. We don't need it anymore. Don't need this anymore. And we're going to delete this one. And notice I'm just replacing this referenced USD, and it's going to point to the new one. Or, you know, you can switch it back and forth. It's really a flexible workflow. So that's why. So, and if you did the Onshape importer, it would just have a single USD for the whole car, and you'd have to replace all or nothing. And I just wanted to point out the reason that, real quick, the reason that I've created an assembly for each component is if I want to put my rod end bearings or a pin in there, I can put all of those in this assembly, and then when I export it to Omniverse, all of that will come in at once, and it'll all be rigged with the physics. You'll have to do some materials work and create some colliders. Don't get me wrong. There'll be some work to do with that change, but your physics will be rigged. And great question here. I've read that step files can be hard to edit, at least when using 3D printers with STL. Yeah, step is a tough format. It's a standard engineering CAD format. It's pretty complex, and I found step imports in general can be a bit dicey. It's just the way it goes. And step is tough. And step and they can be kind of corrupted or not transfer between CAD systems as well as you might hope. STL is really great for 3D printers, but keep in mind that an STL is just a triangulated mesh. And so if you're going to manufacture, like if you were going to do a CNC, use a CNC mill to cut something out, STL probably wouldn't be the best. You might end up with tessellated results. Or if you're going to do structural analysis or something, STL is kind of a lower quality file format. It's more of a visual format. All right. Let's see. I'll leave that fillet for now. I don't really care. And let's reload this. JetRacer, simulation. Don't save. And you'll see that I'm back to that step, or back to this previous arm. So all you can just swap those individual component layers it'll swap in your parent USD. So that's the pipeline that's flexible enough. I struggled with this because at first I was bringing in the whole assembly, and then I couldn't replace any of the parts if I needed to. It was kind of a pain. And so, but then if I had a USD file for every single individual little part, that'd be like, even for this little remote control car, that'd be hundreds of little. I mean, this stage would have like this big long list of stuff. And so I think the key there is for each, it's like, what do you care about, right? What's the group of components that you don't mind replacing altogether? And in this case, it was the group of components that kind of move together as a rigid body. So with that, what do you say we rig up this front right wheel with joints? And I'll just show you. I've got the front left is all working, and the front right, I just duplicated it. And let's see, have I changed the names of everything? No. So I'm just gonna change the name of everything here. Oh, it's old to new. I like alphabetical. Just renaming stuff. I wish there was a find and replace. That said, one of you could write a find and replace. Then you'd be famous. Actually, I think I've hinted on the Discord that I've been looking for, workflows that you all could use to make money and make a business out of using Omniverse. Right. Oh, cool. Now these are all hooked up wrong. Let's see, we're gonna just, okay, cool. And I just want to say, I thought of one workflow that I think would be really pretty straightforward, and you could sell at flat rate. So I think it would be easy to sell. And that is setting up putting a camera so that it's pointing at, if you have a bin of objects that someone needs to keep in inventory. I think you could take a Jetson Nano with a camera, point it at the bin of objects, and teach an AI to count how many are there, or just to tell you if it's running low. And then if it's running low, either automatically order more stuff, or just to let the person know that they need more stuff. They need to order more stuff. And I think you could do that as a straightforward synthetic data workflow. And I think you could get a really solid idea of how long it takes you and come up with a flat rate to say, hey, I'll come and set this thing up on site for you for, so many dollars. And I think you could find a lot of customers who would want you to do that for a flat rate. Oh, and Zia has a cool idea. A roaming vehicle that does an inventory count in a warehouse. I think that would be definitely an advanced use case, right? Another one is a lot of times, and I'm trying to pair along with lean manufacturing. So if you want to make money in this space, in the manufacturing space, I highly recommend that you read about lean manufacturing and learn about it, because if we can use AI to make lean manufacturing practices easier, I think there's a huge market there that we can tap into. That said, let's get this thing rigged. Right now, you can see it's rigged to the chassis and this left arm. So the chassis is still correct, but here we have I've created a joint. And by the way, I'm just going to reattach this one. And then I'm going to create a rear one from scratch. I think we'll have time for both of those, but let me just show you we'll just kind of walk through this one. Each joint is attached to two bodies. The body 0 is the parent, body 1 is the child. So chassis is still correct. Let's add a new target. And we want to attach this to arm front right lower. Arm front right lower. And you can see now it's going from the chassis to that arm. This is on the wrong side. So if we look, we've got these local coordinates for each of the bodies. And not to worry, for this one, we're just mirroring it. So we're just going to reverse the Y. On the right layer. I am. Okay. Whew. So you moved it over now. Okay, let's kind of go through these. This goes from the lower arm to the upright. So we'll have to replace both of those. Let's start by attaching to the lower arm. Arm front right lower. And then now let's attach to the upright. This should be alphabetical. Upright, rear, front right. Upright, front right. Add it. Okay, they're both glowing like I would expect. Cool. And the position's way over here though, so let's reverse that. Now it's on this side. Yep, we're just going to go through and do this. Let's see. This goes from, well, this is our outboard. So this goes from the, why is that alphabetically? Oh, this is the wrong name. This is upper. There we go. Do the inboard first. So it goes from the chassis to the front left upper. Let's add that target. Arm front left upper. Oh, I want front right upper. Oh dear. Arm front right upper. Now the right stuff is glowing, so that's good. Okay, and now from the arm front right upper. And we're going to go to the upright front right. Upright rear left, upright front right. And the right things are glowing. Cool. Oh, wait, did I move it? Oh, I didn't move it. So let's make it the direction. And I'm just going to, let's see, go chassis is still correct. Into the shock front right upper. Shock front left upper, shock front right lower, shock front right upper. And once again, just going to mirror this stuff over. And now we've got the, how's that looking? Yep. Here's our outboard, our lower shock. And it goes from the front left lower, arm front left lower to shock front left lower. Let's go to arm front right lower. Arm front right lower. To the shock front right lower. And you can do searches here. There you go. Cool. And so now we should see, oh, and we've got to reverse that. Let's just go through these. -8, -8, cool. This is going to flip through these. Just do the logic test. Both things on the right side should be glowing. Oh, I didn't flip that one to the other side. Good thing we double checked. Yeah, you're looking good. You're looking great. All right, let's move these last two, and we should be all set. And then that front suspension should work. And Gia asks, if we mess up the target, do we just redo to overwrite? I don't know. Do you know what he means by messing up the target? I'm not sure what you mean by messing up the target. Maybe if you could clarify.
Like target of the joints?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, clarify for us. Oh, if you mess up the name. Oh, I see. Yeah, like when you're replacing a part. Or if you're choosing here. Oh, yeah, you can't. You can't even type in these fields. You've got to select them. So if you're retargeting the joint, rigid bodies that joints attached to, yeah, you've got to just select it again. You can retarget. That's what I'm doing here. Is I just duplicate all these and I'm retargeting them to the right rigid bodies. Let's do this one next. Shock front left. So shock front right upper. Shock front right. Right there. And shock front right lower. Oh, that's easier. And it's on the wrong side, and it might be the wrong angle. See how it's angled in line with the. This is a prismatic joint that connects the two shocks to each other. And as you can see, it's the opposite direction. So let's oh dear. Having trouble rotating that the way I want to. So let's 59.036. See, it flips on me sometimes. Well, it's in the right direction, and it's in the limits. These limits are way down here so that the spring will work. I'll go over that more with the when I rig up the rear shock from scratch. Let's just that's looking right. Let's do this rear wheel now. Upright front left. Should be upright front right now. Upright front right. And then wheel front left. Wheel front right. And then reverse that. How does that look? The wheel is a little different one. Let's see how it looks. Oh, wheel's terrible. What did I do wrong? Oh, I see. Oh, interesting. Just looking at this. Oh, okay. It's because the wheel is I instanced the wheels, and so with the rest of them, the two the local positions are exactly the same, except for this wheel, because I put instances of the wheel around, and I'll show you how to deal with that when we do the rear, that detail. So let's see if this works now. Yeah, there we go. What's going on there? Why did it drop like that? Oh. I have a feeling that our springs are off. So,
is it recommended to kind of like, as you're creating these joints, to kind of test them out every time? Or could you like create all the joints at once and then test it?
I recommend you test as you go for sure. It gets a little. I tested. I had the rear rigged pretty well, so that's why I felt like I could just do those all at once like this. Even still, there's something happening to my strings. My springs are not looking right, and so yeah, let's go to my springs. Let's go to both of them. And bump up the spring rate. Oh, too much. Oh, don't tell me. Oh, I promise to save you right now. I think we did too much spring rate. But let's go ahead and save before I continue. Oh, please don't. Hopefully it recovers here. Might have just lost that work.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, so yeah, you can adjust the spring rates, and that's what I did, but I put them way too high, and so it wrecked everything. So let's just give it just a minute to try to recover. If not, yeah, Nandu is saying if he imports as a GLTF, the size is 10 times than a step file. Is that even after you've converted it to USD? Would be my question for you. And then the orientation is sometimes incorrect. Yeah. Oh, there it goes. Shoot. Oh well. That's what I get for not saving. But we'll go ahead and rig up the rear more from scratch, so you can get a little more detail. I know that was a little quick to just do the rear like that, or to copy the front anyway. Honestly, Nandy, my thoughts are, I think that it's unfortunate that step. I haven't had any problems with other CAD formats. Like if you're using SolidWorks, then it's not any trouble. I could import from SolidWorks and from NX without any trouble at all. And Step is the only one that's gives me a bit of trouble right now. And that's going to be fixed with this upcoming release with USD Composer. And let's see, Nandu's asking, can you talk about part studios versus assemblies? Yeah, part studios are where you might design things in context. So you'll design your stuff in the part studios, but then you'll bring parts together in the assemblies. And and so the whole part studio versus assembly thing is an on-shape thing. You don't really have that concept in other CAD softwares. So that's on-shape specific. In other softwares, in other CAD softwares, you'll typically just have one assembly, and then you'll copy geometry or link geometry around throughout the assembly. which can be a bit dicey, honestly. There's a lot of pitfalls when you're copying geometry around in assembly. Well, that was a bummer, but let's move on to that rear suspension. All right, we're on the joint layer. Yeah, back where we were before the crash, or before when I first opened it. Shoot. Let's pick up this rear suspension. Okay, so when we're rigging for the first time here, a really handy thing to do is go to the chassis and turn on kinematic enabled right there. Now when we run it, you'll notice that the chassis doesn't move. And I don't know if I can even pull this. Look at that spin. Kind of it's stuck on the ground right now. So let's actually go to that just front suspension. I'm going to delete this. I haven't done anything with it yet. Okay, and let's go to this shock and go to this prismatic joint. And I'm just going to make this like a really low spring rate for now. And this reason is because now I should be able to like pick this up. Still hard to do. Let's make that spring rate like really low. All right, we're just going to take it off. And take that off. Oh, that's probably the problem. Let's make the damping 0. But I'll be able to move it now. Oh. All right. Well, I'm just going to take off that, and I'm going to take off the limits. Just so I can show you this. Okay, so now, come on. You kidding me? Maybe it's too heavy, huh? Let's step back to having limits. Make you like 0.07. Let's just change our masses of everything. Sorry, just trying to get this debugging. So what we can do, well, I'll just go through it with this rear one. We'll get there. Okay, so right now if I run it, this all falls apart, right? Okay, these are heavy parts. I think I gave them all a mass of just 1, which is probably 1 kilogram, which is like way too much for these little teeny parts. No, I made the chassis rigid as a on purpose so that everything's not moving around. So I went to the chassis and enabled kinematic mode. So now if I turn that off and run it, chassis moves. If I turn on kinematic enabled, the chassis holds still for me. And now I can debug all of my other joints so much easier because I can drag on them and pull on them and everything else doesn't move. But yeah, that's a good point. Let's go ahead and change that mass a little bit to, man, stuff is more like, if I pull up my chart, stuff is maybe like 5 or 10 grams, maybe a pound at the most. But these arms are all like in that, 10-gram range. So I'm going to make their mass a lot smaller. To do that, I'll go to this filter and select my where are you? I want to choose my physics colliders. There we go. If I look at this one, you'll see that's where I've added a mass. And I just made it 1 just to make everything stable. If you're as you're debugging, it helps to give everything just like just some kind of consistent mass. And it's not going to be a correct simulation, but it's easy to deal with. And so I can just put this filter on, and then I can shift click and select all of my colliders at once. And then let's just see. So that's 1 pound. Let's just give it 1/10 of a pound and see how that works. Oh, it wants to let me move it. Let's make it even smaller. Where's my mass? Yeah, it's like 10 grams now. And I wonder what that spring force is on that thing. Let's clear off that collider. Let's go to the shocks and select that prismatic. No, it's hard. Let's take off. I guess I'll take off the limits and stuff. Oh, I don't know why. It's not letting me pick it up.
Kind of reminds me of pickup sticks.
Zoom out. There we go. I can pick it up. See if I can pick it up from in here. Nope. Yeah, so you can see it's working for me. Let's see, a kilogram is 1,000 grams. So 0.1 kilogram is 100, and 0.01 is 10 grams. Yeah, I don't know. The pickup thing isn't working the best for me, right? Or that little force thing. You can actually change how much force that applies, but we got 10 minutes left. So let's get raking this rear suspension, okay? Let's start with one joint here. We'll start with, I guess first I'll show you that on the chassis, I have checked the box that it is I've added, excuse me. Where is it? There should be a articulation root. Where is that? Did I not do that?
And maybe that's why they're falling.
Add physics articulation root. Oh, there, I didn't have it. Oh. Well, adding that articulation root makes this whole simulation much more stable. It's a higher fidelity simulation. And so you want to do that. And then I've made the chassis the articulation root so that anything built off of it will be an articulation. And if you do it, I can make the JetRacer an articulation root, and then everything would be a single articulation. By making the chassis an articulation root, there'll be 4 independent articulations, or it'll make them independent. So
what is an articulation root?
It's just when you're doing the more accurate physics, you need to start from one point and then have items that go out from there. And it has to do with I don't even understand the technical aspects, but that's you've got to have your root part. And if you have like a robot arm that's fixed to the ground, that would be the base of the robot arm.
Mm.
If you're going to have something that's freely moving in space, you want to pick some central thing, like in this case, the chassis, and make that your articulation root. And then every like thing that comes off of it will be a separate articulation. And so what we'll do here, for example, is, and you can't have loops. And so with the rear suspension, for example, we'll have a loop that we'll have this one that goes kind of from the chassis to the arm and back to the shock, right? And what I'll do is I'll break that up with the shock and say this one of the shock, I will explicitly say you are not part of an articulation. So they'll have one articulation here and one here. And then I'll probably have to do the wheel too. We'll have to kind of pick, you have to pick your articulations and where you kind of break up any loops. Oh, that's funny. Because the chassis is in kinematic mode, it's ignoring the articulation stuff. It just gave me that warning. That's fine. All right, back to business. Let's come here and let's create a joint. Or sorry, let's create a transform and rename it to be rear left. Okay. And create a transform. Under that, rename it to arm, rear, lower, left. And now we're going to right click and say create a physics joint. And we're going to make a revolute joint, which is basically like a pin that can rotate around an axis. But it does not slide along the pin, it only rotates. And you can see it's in the wrong place and it's got the wrong stuff. So we're going to delete this. We've just created basically an empty one. Let's rename this to be, I want to follow this same kind of pattern. Arm, rear, lower, left, inboard. Let's add our targets. First is the chassis. And the second is going to be the arm, rear, left, lower. Great. So now they're both glowing. I've selected the right items, but you can see this joint is way off base. And so this is where those main connectors really help us out back in Onshape. Let's go to our suspension template, or skeleton, excuse me. And we're here in the rear left. And so, see, this is our inboard shock mount, or inboard arm mount. There's our outboard shock. There's our outboard arm. This is our wheel center, what it rotates about. That's the upper arm, lower arm, or sorry, outboard arm, upper arm, inboard upper arm, inboard shock. But this one right here, and they're named well, inboard, rear, lower. If I double click on that, I know the exact position of that in space. And since I built everything from the origin, I can just put the local and global coordinate systems are the same. And so I can just place the local coordinates of both of those sides of the joint to those coordinates, and we should be good to go. So negative 128.5, 3720. Let's give that a try. Negative 128.5, 3720. Oh, we're in millimeters here. It's 12.85, 3.72. Because this environment is in centimeters and we're working in millimeters and Onshape. As you can see, that one is in the right place now. Let's do it with this one. Negative 12.85, 3.72. Here we go. Now let's take a look. It's rotating about the x-axis, which is correct. And let's simulate it. Must be some frictions on these joints or something. That looks about right. Cool. Let's save. Let's learn from our lessons here. All right. Now, let's add. So now we can just duplicate that for the Well, no, we can't. I'm sorry. This outboard one is not a. Wait, in the rear it is a revolute. In the front, because we have the steering, those outboard joints are spherical joints, but in the rear there's no steering, so they are revolute joints. So we can just duplicate this now. And let's rename it to be arm rear lower left outboard. And instead of going from the chassis to the lower arm, we're going to go from the arm rear lower left. Oh, I got a weird name. Oh, it's arm rear left. Arm rear left lower. And we're going to add the target, which is the wheel rear left. Okay.
Can you keep it in 10 seconds?
Yeah. Let's see if how that looks. Oh, I've got the wrong. My wheels must be labeled wrong. Yep, I've got it. My wheels misnamed. And then we'll go back into on shape. Maybe not 10 seconds, but just about. And we're going to go to our outboard rear suspension. And it's negative 128.5, 90, 20. So let's go there. Negative, let's see, we're going to say 9.2. Oh, what happened there? Negative 12.85, 9.2. Oh, what did I do? Oh, it's that wheel. Right, I'm glad I saw this. And we are finishing up. To do that, what you're going to do is you're going to do a measure from the contact patch, which is the origin of that wheel, to that suspension point, which is 0, 2.5, negative 20. It might be backwards. So 0.252 on Omniverse side. Zero. Does this line up? Yeah. And you know what? We're going to have to do a bit more work because of the angles off. So let's see if I just turn this. Oh, let's fiddle until it works. So I should rotate it about the Z 180. There we go, negative 90. Make that back to 2. Oh dear. Wait, what happened? I thought I had it. Well, I've got to tweak. Boop. Is that right? Yeah, that is right. Let's see if it works. There we go. Now we've got Revolut on the wheel.
Nice.
And I'll just kind of keep working through and testing between phases with this chassis and kinematic mode and kind of, and now that this one's done, I can just copy and paste this whole transform, and it'll copy and paste both of those joints. I'll use that for the upper. You know, I can copy and paste I can copy and paste my shocks to the rear, and I can copy and paste and just reattach stuff and move stuff around. And I know the exact positions I need because I can extract them from OnShape in my CAD. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed today's session, and we'll see you all next week. Have a good one.